The X-Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell is largely an opinion talk show. All opinions, comments, or statements of fact expressed by Rob McConnell's guests are strictly their own and are not to be construed as those of the X-Zone Radio Show or endorsed in any manner by Rob McConnell, rel-mar McConnell Media Company, the X-Zone Broadcast Network, its affiliated networks, stations, employees, or advertisers.
All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
And welcome back to the X-Zone, everyone. I am Rob McConnell. We're coming to you from our broadcast center and studios in beautiful Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. If you'd like to send me an email, xzone at xzoneradiotv.com, on all social media sites, X-Zone Radio TV. And to find out about the programming we have available for you, 7/24, 365 on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net. And we're coming to you around the world tonight on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, Talkstar Radio Network, Mutual Broadcast Network, and iHeartRadio. My guest this hour, X-Zone Nation, is Michael Brein, also known as the Travel Psychologist, is an author, lecturer, travel storyteller, adventurer, and publisher of travel books and guides. He regularly appears in newspapers, magazines, blogs, and radio programs on the psychology of travel. Michael is the first person to coin the term travel psychology. Through his doctoral studies, work, and life experiences and extensive world travels, he has become the world's first and maybe the only travel psychologist. His travel guide series, Michael Brein's Travel Guides to Sightseeing by Public Transportation, shows travelers how to sightsee the top 50 visitor attractions in the world's most popular cities easily and cheaply by public transportation. Michael also publishes his True Travel Tales series, a collection of print, ebook, and audiobooks of the best 10,000 travel stories shared with him from interviews with nearly 2,000 world travelers and adventurers that Michael has encountered in his own extensive travels around the world. Michael Brein resides on Bainbridge Island in Washington. His website and blog is www.michaelbrein.com, and that's MichaelBrein.com. And Michael, welcome to the X-Zone.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Never had a travel psychologist on the show before. Tell me, what's it like to be a travel psychologist?
Well, you'd think somebody would have thought of it before. Honestly, I was the first one to really think about that. There's been sports psychologists and all other kinds of psychology, but I was bitten by the travel bug, and I was on my way through degrees in universities, and I thought, why not just make it a study? I love traveling, and why not study what's behind travel? And I really became the first person to certainly go around the world interviewing nearly 2,000 people. Mm-hmm. And I, during my doctoral studies, took courses that were related to it in some way. And for example, I worked for the University of Hawaii's Peace Corps program for a little while. I took all kinds of different courses, different language courses, and I got my PhD in social psychology at the University of Hawaii. So it was a great place to go to school and a great cultural mix of people from everywhere. So that's how I kind of launched my career in travel psychology.
Where's your favorite part of the world? And can you share a story with us about that part of the world?
I can. Some of the best stories are the ones that you think maybe you're never going to make it out of there alive.
Really?
My favorite part of the world was Zimbabwe, formerly known as Northern Rhodesia. And I was at a wilderness camp, tenant camp, and there was wildlife all over the place. And one day I thought, I'll go canoeing. And there was a guide and several canoes. And I had a British journalist sitting in the back of my canoe, and he knew less than I did. And all of a sudden, we find ourselves drifting closer and closer to hippos.
Oh boy!
And if you may not know it, hippos are probably the most dangerous animal to human beings on their turf in Africa. And so we're drifting closer and closer and closer. And we were kind of the class clowns in the beginning. We'd turn around in a circle. We wouldn't know what we were doing. And the Brit journalist knew less than I did about canoeing. And finally, the guide, about a mile down the way with two other canoes along with him, said, "Put your oars in the water on the left and paddle, paddle, paddle." And gosh, we just drifted out of there ever so slowly. There's been people, including river guides, killed by hippos. I mean, it was not just an innocent thing going canoeing on the Zambezi River. And just drifting along once away from those hippos with elephants and Cape buffalo on the riverbanks chewing the grass. And I never felt more alive in my life. It was so exhilarating. And so guess what? It becomes a memorable event, doesn't it?
It sure
Even if
does.
it was scary.
It sure.
That's my favorite.
Tell me about your book or your series that you published, True Travel Tales.
Thank you. So having collected all these stories from all these people, I'm estimating I have somewhere between 5,000 and 10,000 accounts of all different kinds, maybe in 100 to 200 different categories. And of course, African wildlife, wilderness, close calls, pickpocketing. I decided I want to do something with this series. And I thought, well, it'd be interesting to talk about the psychology of travel as revealed through people's experiences. And so some of them fall into different sorts of categories. Among those categories, my latest book is on this, I noticed listening to all the Me Too stories that were emerging in America recently, I realized, gee, I have somewhere between 90 and 100 accounts of young women and girls traveling in different parts of the world having to deal with this sort of thing. So I decided maybe the most important book to bring out as soon as I could is called this, Travel Tales, Women Alone, the Me Too of Travel. And I tried to understand as much as possible what happened to these women, how they prevailed in a lot of instances, and some of them didn't do so well. And I thought I'd be doing a really good service by gathering these stories together. And similarly, I have a subset of stories that were about the paranormal kinds of events that happen to people, and
right.
Some UFO stories. And that's how I got together with Rosemary Ellen Guiley, and we did a 2-book series that we just brought out. One is, the title of the series is called The Road to Strange, and the first one is Travel Tales of the Paranormal and Beyond, and the second one is the Road to Strange, UFOs, Aliens, and High Strangeness. And again, most of these were based on my interviews with people in my world travels. And so I told Rosemary, I think I have an interesting collection of experiences. Let's work together. And so we brought out those two. But again, these are just a few subcategories of the tremendous range of experiences that I've heard from people in all my travels. It was very exciting for me to interview all these people, and they're so eager to share their experiences with you, you know.
So tell me, when it comes to the paranormal, are you a skeptic or are you a believer?
Well, let me first say that from high school on, I was deeply immersed in all the sciences. I was going to do chemical engineering at Carnegie Mellon, and I changed my mind after a year, and I went to Temple University in Philadelphia and got involved in psychology, which is a social science. So I had my feet firmly planted in the science box, so to speak. And people around me were very skeptical of anything that didn't fit their normal paradigms of science. And then I began to realize that I think people have other experiences that just don't neatly fit within the scientific box. So I found myself as kind of looking at it from both perspectives. Although I wouldn't call myself a parapsychologist, I never really got that immersed in that field, as there are people who do. But I just decided I'll learn what I can by interviewing people and listening to their experiences and asking good questions. And in the end, I believe that everybody has to decide for themselves where they stand between the verifiable exact science and experiences of believable people. And in the end, I think if you've had your own experience, well, therefore, you're probably a little more open or a little more prone to accept the experiences of other people. And I'm kind of somewhere on that continuum. I want to say that in the paranormal psychology, in the Travel Tales of the Paranormal and Beyond, I have about a half a dozen of my own paranormal kinds of experiences that did happen to me in my travels. So in the end, Rosemary said to me one day, "My God, you have somebody might want to call an inner psychic." And I have to say, I did have rather unexplainable, unbelievable to some people experiences that, for me personally.
Well, we're going to talk about those. We're going to talk about those when we come back from our commercial break. X-Zone Nation, Michael Brein is our special guest this hour. www.michaelbrein.com. That's MichaelBrein.com. This is the X-Zone. I am Rob McConnell, and you're listening to us on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, Talkstar Radio Network, Mutual Broadcast Network, and iHeart Radio. And, of course, the X-Zone channel, where you can watch the X-Zone TV show, as well as other great programming, is available on SimulTV at www.simultv.com. We'll be back on the other side of this break. Don't go away. Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X-Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, X-1, Dimension X, Space Patrol, and every minute of the X-Zone Broadcast Network by calling 213-401-0080, courtesy of Audio Now. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan, and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 213-401-0080 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember, 213-401-0080 for the best of the paranormal, parapsychology, and sci-fi radio programming anywhere, 24/7, 365.
You have heard of the X-Zone? Now watch it on SimulTV. Plus 500 video games, live TV channels, free video on demand, worldwide, and more. Does this sound like tomorrow's television? Well, it is, but you can have it today, right now. It is SimulTV. SimulTV offers what the others only wish they could provide. 15 exclusive channels like X-Zone, Sci-Fi, and Horror. We are worldwide. No other provider offers that. 500 built-in video games. No need to have an extra expensive system. We have them included. Free video on demand. Live streaming events from around the world. Interactive online network, and much more. Tomorrow's TV today. SimulTV. Sound too good to be true? Well, it's not. You can have SimulTV today. Sign up at simultv.com. Do it today.
Modern Esoteric, Beyond Our Senses by Brad Olson, consummates the lifeology story about where humanity originates. It is the lost continents, the primitive wisdom, the mythos of creation, and the rethinking of ancient history as we are taught in academia. There is much more to the story than what we have been told. As this is the first book in the Esoteric series, Modern Esoteric starts at the beginning of time and accelerates up to this modern age. Future Esoteric is book 2 in the series and takes a forward-looking position ahead of today with an open and honest examination of the ET issue and various unexplained phenomena. To discover the writings of author Brad Olson, visit www.bradolson.com. That's www.bradolson.com. Welcome back, everyone. Michael Brein is our special guest this hour, www.michaelbrein.com. Your recent book with books with Rosemary Ellen Guiley have as a part of their titles The Road to Strange, and there's the Travel Tales of the Paranormal, and the other one is UFOs, Aliens, and High Strangeness. So let's talk about the first book, Travel Tales of the Paranormal, and some of the paranormal events that you yourself had while taking these travels as the travel psychologist.
Yeah, sure. Let me share with you one of the more extraordinary things that happened to me. I've had in my lifetime, I think, a lot of what you might call synchronicities or coincidences. You know, seeing somebody unexpectedly pop up in a totally two different places. That's something, you know, and we all pay attention to that. But what happens when it's so intertwined? I had one that was, I would call a quintuple synchronicity. So let me tell you about that one.
Okay, super.
I was writing the travel guide series to Sightseeing by Public Transportation, and I would go to the book fairs in New York City, usually at the end of May, beginning of June. So one year, I board a United Airlines flight. I'm going from Medford, Oregon to basically Philadelphia, where I grew up. My sister lived there, and stopped off for a visit. And on the plane, I grabbed a copy of Hemispheres magazine, United's in-flight magazine, thinking, why don't I write to United and ask them if they might want to review my travel guide series? So I just tucked it in my attaché. This is my sister. Now I got on a train to go up to the book fair in New York City. And I'm on the train and passing towns, and suddenly I see a sign that says Rahway, New Jersey. And you know how a lot of us are? We think we see a sign, the name of a town. I know somebody from Rahway, New Jersey. This was a guy that was in a fraternity at Carnegie Mellon when I was there 42 years earlier. And I remembered him saying he lived in Rahway. You know, useless fact, but there I was paying attention to that. And then I get to New York City. I do the book fair for several days. Now I'm boarding a flight on United from New York back to Medford, Oregon, because I was living in Ashland, Oregon at the time. Grabbed the June issue of Hemispheres magazine. So now I had the May and the June issue in my attaché case. And again, why not contact United and see if I can't have something said about my travel guides? So I arrive in Ashland. I go into my house. There's a pile of mail, and I see this big envelope, big white envelope, and I open it up, and my God, it says Hemispheres magazine. I pull out the issue, which was the May issue, the first one I got. It says open to page, say 24. I open up. There's a review of my travel guides right in that magazine. Can't believe it. Picked up those two issues to contact them later about that. All right, that's interesting. So I go upstairs to my loft office, and I look and see, did I get any orders for my travel guides while I was away? And usually I get orders for these guides from around the world. Maybe somebody from Egypt, somebody from France, who knows where. Oh, here's an order from Ashland, Oregon, the town I live in. I never got an order for a travel guide on the internet from where I live. So, okay, I teasingly contact the people and say, would you like me to deliver these to you in person, or do you want to come and get them? Well, they were astounded. And then I look at the name of the person. Same name of the person that I knew looking at the sign, Rahway, New Jersey, Jan Chaikin. I couldn't believe that. So I said, could you be the same Jan Chaikin who was from Rahway, New Jersey at Carnegie Mellon like 42 years earlier? I would be that Jan Chaikin.
Oh, my gosh.
Yes. What do you make of this? How do you say it's mere chance when it's so complicated and so intertwined? So it woke me up. I paid attention to it. I couldn't explain to you what synchronicity really is, but I paid attention to that one. And I had some other experiences as well.
Share another experience with us.
Okay. I was with two college friends driving in the Italian Alps on our way to an area called Cortina d'Ampezzo, just a place up in the mountains somewhere. Beautiful mountain scenery, driving along, looking in valleys and mountain ranges and whatnot. Very nice, exciting, wonderful day. And all of a sudden, I started getting anxious. I had a lot of anxiety, and I was actually feeling some fear, and I couldn't imagine what that was about. We weren't driving fast. The roads weren't particularly dangerous or precarious or anything. But this feeling kept mounting and kept building in me, and I didn't know really what to make of it. And then we come around the bend, and suddenly on like both sides of the valley where we were on the highway along the side of one of the sides of the valley were all these shells of buildings and houses. And approximately a year earlier, there had been a massive flood that overcame the huge dam there, and something like 1,900 people were killed.
Oh, my God.
I had no real explanation for this fear and anxiety that I felt up to that point, because I couldn't have seen, where we were heading into, and I had no knowledge of the area. So, how can you say really what it was? But I certainly had that fear and anxiety. And I had one more similar experience to that. Fear and anxiety building up seemed unrealistic to me. I had parked my VW bus in the suburbs of Barcelona, and I went into town on the metro to do the sights, and came back towards the end of the day, got back on the metro, heading out to where I had parked my bus, and it was along a main street, and which I did purposely in order to minimize any problems I might have, because there'd be a lot of people around. But I'm feeling this same sort of anxiety and fearfulness, and I couldn't explain it, and I was nervous and worried about it, and got to the metro station, got off, walked to my van, saw broken glass on the street and a door open.
Oh, no.
And the window had been broken into. And a Spanish couple had walked by and said, and I understood my halting Spanish, "We heard your siren wailing for about 3 hours. We saw some men run away from your van and jump into a car and drive off. They didn't steal anything. And I was lucky to have the siren built into the van. But again, hard to really explain it, but I certainly had this very strong feeling of anxiety and fearfulness. And I'll label it tentatively as paranormal, because I have no other explanation. And I kind of tended to have some experiences like these. So I'm open to explanations,
sure,
of course, but these are feelings that I've been left with. And somehow, and I think other people have kind of verified this with me as well, is when people have these strange experiences that are very atypical of their normal life's experiences, they kind of sense that something's a little different, something's a little untoward, something's a little unusual, and they have some of these experiences which they don't understand. And part of the reason they share them with me is because they're hoping that somebody else might have some insight, to help them figure out what happened to them.
But as a psychologist, what kind of sense do you make out of these events?
Again, if I'll step out of the science box a little bit, the sense I make of it is the longer I live and the more I hear what the physicists are coming up with these days, now they're speculating that the universe is made up of some kind of consciousness. It's not simply a materialistic universe. Of course, it's hard to prove any of this, but it suggests to me, from my life's experiences and interviewing many people and attending many conferences and just spending a lot of time on some of these subjects, that the world, the universe, is broader than we understand at the moment. And some of these experiences that we have are probably pointing to some part of the universe, the realm, that we don't quite understand now. And why would we know it all in a million years from now, a billion years from now, more, as we evolve and move on, maybe we'll understand a lot more than we do right now with today's 21st century science. We're not in the Stone Age, but
right.
Gosh, we're not as far along as we will be in a million years from now.
Talking to all the people that you had the opportunity of speaking to, Michael, is there Is there a common thread between the people who have had these experiences and the people who haven't had the experiences?
That's a really good question. And, I can't give you a definitive answer to it, but I'll say this, that I've noticed among travelers as a group, they tend to be more open and more eager for novelty and new experiences. They're looking to have new experiences, to grow personally, to experience things that they haven't before, maybe to self-actualize a little bit more. So being open to new experiences might predispose them a bit more to some of the unusual, some of the strange that might come from the road of travel. And that's kind of how Rosemary and I settled on that name. The road to strange elicits, I think, in some people, the thought that, there are things that happen that aren't really that explainable and they can happen.
All right, my friend, we've got to take our news break. Please stand by. Exonation Michael Brein is our special guest. His website, www.michaelbrein.com. That's www.michaelbrein.com. And Michael and I will be back on the other side of this break at the news as we continue here in the X Zone from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Don't go away.
From our broadcast studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, to the world and beyond, you're watching the X Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net.
AVS Media Den.
I am Dr. Carl O'Helvey, founder, president of a new cancer foundation focusing on evidence-based physical, mental, and spiritual interventions, including natural cancer cures, prayer, meditation, affirmations, nutrition, and other related holistic cancer prevention and cure modalities. These are used in cancer education, research, and financing care. I ask for your help to continue this important work by donating at www.holisticcancerfoundation.com.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, X-1, Dimension X, Space Patrol, and every minute of the X Zone Broadcast Network by calling 213-401-0080, courtesy of Audio Now. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan, and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 213-401-0080 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember 213-401-0080 for the best of the paranormal, parapsychology, and sci-fi radio programming anywhere, 24/7, 365.
Rob McConnell here, presenting an overview for Nicholas Paul Jennings, author of a fascinating book, Amen. It presents facts revealed by Egyptologists, facts that enable us to understand why Amen is the beginning of creation of God. It provides recommendations for religious leaders of the major religions to unify their beliefs and teach the Word of God. Love one another. Amen informs people how mankind conceived God. It was the Egyptians that developed the concepts of a soul, a hereafter, and Son of God. And finally, after the worship of many gods, they conceived the belief in one universal God, the maker of all there is. For more information, visit www.futureofgodamen.com. That's www.futureofgodamen.com.
Michael Brein is our special guest this hour, Exonation. Michael wrote with Rosemary Ellen Guiley, who's been on the Exxon a number of times, the two following books: The Road to Strange, Travel Tales of the Paranormal, and Road to Strange, UFOs, Aliens, and High Strangeness. His website is michaelbryan.com. Michael, with all the people that you've spoken to, are there a couple of stories that they told you about their encounters or their experiences that just made you shiver, just made you remember them out of the thousands of people that you talked to?
I'm sure, yeah. There's quite a few. I'll give you a funny one.
Okay.
And I don't know what to make of this, honestly, but I was approached by this young man who had a shirt on that was like Bela Lugosi. You know, he was obviously into that kind of thing, vampires and whatnot. And he said that he took his girlfriend to Transylvania for one Halloween and stayed in the Hotel Transylvania, where all the supposed things happen on Halloween. Who knows, you know? But it was funny because he said he felt that both he and his girlfriend had some sort of experience that night. They didn't know quite what to make of it. Didn't remember any details and all. And I looked at him, and he had a little tattoo of Bela Lugosi on his arm, and I thought, my God, you know, maybe it's his life's mission to go to Transylvania on Halloween. You know, you don't know quite what to make of something like that. Part of you says, oh, I can't really believe it. But, I mean, he was so sincere in talking about it. I thought, wow, my goodness, maybe this is a strange kind of calling that he had. I've had other stories. This one happened to a friend of mine, was interesting. And he was in Mexico looking at ruins, and there with a Mexican guide and a few other Americans there on that day. And suddenly the Mexican tour guide pulled his gun, shot, and killed a deadly fer-de-lance snake. That was not too far from the group. No, it was very poisonous. And he said, that's a devil snake. Don't go near it. Don't touch it. But one of the group wanted the snake skin, to do something with it. So my friend Dave, who related the story to me, proceeded to skin the snake and give the guy, he was a hunter, and so he wasn't afraid of doing stuff like this. So he gave the snake skin to this other person on the tour, and the tour guide was just beside himself, saying, you should not touch that snake. It's a devil snake. It's dangerous. And so Dave forgot all about it. And a couple of years later, he, in Seattle, doing a training of practice done by Hawaiians called huna. I don't know much about it. I can't really describe it to you. But they go through various exercises. And one of the so-called exercises was to kind of eliminate and cut connections for some reason, some connections from your past. And so they're all doing this exercise, and the assistant to the huna practitioner, a Hawaiian lady who was known for these things, came by Dave and looked at him and said, don't forget to cut the cord, your connection with the snake that's wrapped up on your arm.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I mean, there's no way he could have known anything about Dave's experience. So that was interesting, It gives me a sense that something very bizarre, something very strange might have happened here. Who am I to question some of these practices that survived for hundreds of years?
Exactly.
And are passed along, But those were two kind of interesting things.
While you were on any of your trips or travels, did you have an encounter with a UFO or extraterrestrials?
No, I didn't myself. Now, let me say that betwixt and between the sorts of world travel that I've done, I was also involved in studying the UFO phenomena simultaneously. And I did a stint for MUFON, the Mutual UFO Network, as a state director for Hawaii when I lived in Hawaii.
Oh, okay.
So for about 10 years. And then the director at the time, knowing how much I traveled and how far and wide I traveled, appointed me as the ambassador at large. I didn't have a portfolio, so to speak, but I liaised with people. I was all over the world, so I made interesting connections. So part of my interviewing of people was to interview people's firsthand experiences. And I got a lot of stories of people who were relating to me, their experiences. And I even had a chance to interview some of the famous UFO researchers of the day, including, for example, J. Allen Hynek, who, you know, worked as a consultant for the Air Force. And his job was to squelch and, explain away as many sightings as he possibly could, because Project Blue Book was considered to be kind of by a lot of people, whitewashing, explaining away the phenomena. And J. Allen Hynek completely turned his mind around and became, shall we say, the father of modern-day ufology. Well, I spent the day with J. Allen Hynek in Honolulu when he came there, driving him all around, and I interviewed him for several hours. He went through some of his old cases, and these were travel stories, so to speak, because he was going to Brazil, he was going to Papua New Guinea, he was interviewing some people in some of the classic cases, and I had a chance to get some of his own opinions. I interviewed Jesse Marcel Jr., the son of the base intelligence officer at Roswell, who claims that his dad brought home in the middle of the morning debris from something that crashed outside Roswell, and for the rest of his father's life and Jesse Marcel Jr.'s life, they believe that they handled stuff that might not have been of this world. So, to make a long story short, I've gone all over the world. I've interviewed quite a few people on their UFO stories, and I added to this collection from which Rosemary and I drew personal accounts of things that have UFO experiences that people have had. And some of them were pretty profound experiences that people told me, and lo and behold, some of them wound up in the UFO book that Rosemary and I were writing together.
What was the most profound UFO sighting story that you have?
Well, I want to say that several people related stories of, according to them, huge craft flying overhead their houses, on their properties, doing things out there. Here's an interesting one. One woman claimed she was getting messages from aliens, and of course her husband and children were a little bit dubious, but she would go outside their home and listen to her radio and get these messages. And she was told to go to Borrego Springs, which was not that far from where she lived, and they would want to meet with her and maybe take her away on an excursion. And she said, well, will you bring me back? And they said, of course, yes, we'll bring you back. Anyway, so they go to Borrego Springs as if on cue to maybe the family was humoring her, or maybe they believed her a little bit. But they were there. They were going to go on this excursion. The father even got to the point, the husband saying, well, if you were to go and disappear, what am I going to do with the children? You're going to leave me here to raise them all by myself? Just leave us? She says, no. And she began to have second feelings. Anyway, they get to Borrego Springs. She goes into this little convenience store there, and she goes up to the clerk, and she kind of sweetly naively asks, where are the UFOs seen around here? And the guy said, lady, nobody sees UFOs here. That doesn't happen. Go away, leave me alone, don't bother me kind of attitude. And she leaves, and she asks the ranger station, same thing, do anybody spot UFOs, and gets the same ridicule and goes out. And then that night, she feels like she needs to do something and go somewhere to have this contact. But she has second thoughts, and she conveys to them, no, I can't do this. I'm not going to do this. And they said, okay, all right. That's the response she gets, more or less. And the next day, she walks into the convenience store, and the same clerk that ridiculed her and chased her out said, did you see it? Did you see the UFO? She says, what are you talking about? He said, we saw it. Here, look at this paper. And there was a thing in the newspaper about people saw something that had landed out in the desert near there. And she wanted to get the paper from him. And he said, no, this is the last copy. I'm keeping it. So what do you do with that? That's just an interesting experience. It
sure is.
Quite unusual, but I'll give you another quick one. You have time for another quick story?
Well, we've got about a minute before our next break.
Let's hold that off.
Yeah, let's hold that off. But Michael, I want to thank you so much for joining us. This is very interesting, and please give my very best to Rosemary the next time you're talking to her. She's remembered very fondly here on this show.
Great, I will do that.
XO Nation, Michael Brein is our special guest. He, along with Rosemary Ellen Guiley, are the authors of The Road to Strange. Well, The Road to Strange Travel Tales of the Paranormal and The Road to Strange, UFOs, Aliens, and High Strangeness. Michael's website is www.michaelbryan.com, and Michael and I will be back as we wrap up this hour here in the X Zone from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Don't forget, if you'd like to get or read online and download the current edition of the X Chronicles newspaper, www.xchroniclesnewspaper.com. I'm Rob McConnell. Don't go away.
You have heard of the X Zone? Now watch it on Simul TV, plus 500 video games, live TV channels, free video on demand, worldwide, and more. Does this sound like tomorrow's television? Well, it is, but you can have it today, right now. It is Simul TV. Simul TV offers what the others only wish they could provide. 15 exclusive channels like X Zone, sci-fi, and horror. We are worldwide. No other provider offers that. 500 built-in video games. No need to have an extra expensive system. We have them included. Free video on demand. Live streaming events from around the world. Interactive online network, and much more. Tomorrow's TV today. Simul TV. Sound too good to be true? Well, it's not. You can have Simul TV today. Sign up at simultv.com. Do it today.
The new nonfiction book, Razor of Madness, is similar to cult movies like Clockwork Orange, Dragon's Tattoo, or The Other Side of Hell. Wayne Morin Jr. and Thomas Lee Howe will expose widespread and systematic deficiencies in this thought-provoking tell-all novel. Mind control rages among scholars in law schools. Human rights are ignored while thought reform and mental manipulation are accepted practices used as behavior modification. Dr. Louis Jolyon West comes to mind. Media and public scrutiny shows that United States mental hospitals are in fact destructive murder industries. Razor of Madness expose novel details this epidemic through an in-depth professional and personal investigation. For decades, there has been a revolving door policy that still releases killers and pedophiles back into society. The maestro of mind control continues to haunt America to this very day. Razor of Madness is available in paperback or as a downloadable ebook at Amazon.com.
I'm William S. Peckham. If you enjoy a good mystery with a touch of the paranormal, then you'll love my novel, From Out of the Woodwork. It's the story of a young Toronto contractor, Sean Kennedy, who buys derelict homes, guts them, and turns them into multifamily dwellings. Slums just waiting to happen. When Sean buys 29 Livery Lane, the house fights back. Former owners unexpectedly come out of the woodwork as he starts the destruction. The apparitions come to him when he touches old books, reads hidden letters, rummages through old boxes, finds a locket, or reads a discovered manuscript of a murder mystery. From Out of the Woodwork will take you from 1899 to the horror of the World Trade Center, September 11, 2001. Check out From Out of the Woodwork on my website, www.williamspeckham.com.
Bit of a cliffhanger here, Exo Nation. Our guest this hour is Michael Brein. He, along with Rosemary Guiley, have written two interesting books. First one is The Road to Strange, Travel Tales of the Paranormal, and the second one, The Road to Strange, UFOs, Aliens, and High Strangeness. And Michael is known as the Travel Psychologist. His website is www.michaelbryan.com. All right, Michael, before we go into the break, you were going to tell us another interesting tale, but we ran out of time. And all right, my friend, please give it to us.
Yeah. Angelica was a lady who shared several really good stories with me of her travels. Mm-hmm. And then she told me about her experience living in a mountainous area of California, in a remote area, tending to pets and children in the area, so on and so forth. And she began to have, actually over a few years, began to see lights in the sky that seemed to be, at first, to behave erratically, mm-hmm. and she didn't know quite what to make of it. But finally, towards the end of the story, they were coming closer and closer. The people in the nearby town said, Angelica, you've got to leave that remote area, see a psychiatrist. I mean, you really have to get out and away and change your place of where you're living. And she says, no, nobody wants to believe me. And finally, towards the end of the story, one night these lights are like right there, real bright and all that. And her daughter in another part of the house said, Mom, what's this? This is scaring me. What is all this? And Angelica finally says, well, I've got confirmation finally. And she just warded these lights off. She didn't want anything to do with them. She ultimately moved out of the area, but she was convinced herself. We call the story Dancing with Angels. But, of course, we don't know exactly what it was, but it appears to be kind of a classic sort of interaction of UFOs with people in some way. I've heard similar stories. We don't really know exactly. She left, but she did get some confirmation. She wasn't crazy. It was just a beautiful story as it was told. And basically all the stories that Rosemary and I have included in our books are based on first-person stories. This is not a science book. This is not analysis of cases and UFO statistics, but firsthand accounts of people that had interesting experiences. And we asked a lot of questions. And Rosemary also does commentary with each of these stories, trying to explain it or relate it to a wider understanding of the phenomena that happens.
Let me ask you, as a psychologist, as an ambassador at large for MUFON, as well as a person who's had the opportunity of speaking to thousands of people, do you think the day will come when disclosure will finally be made?
Isn't that the question of the millennium? Yeah. It seems like it's inching in that direction. I mean, we see false starts. People come out, are very public. Mm-hmm. I think one of the most instrumental, important disclosure events was that National Press Club experience with a lot of really good professional witnesses and pilots and FAA people that happened in Washington, D.C. about 17 years ago.
Yeah, that was with Stephen Bassett and his group.
You remember that, Steve Greer.
Yeah.
But we had a lot of really good witnesses, and nothing happened after that convinces me that was as good as that revelation of people and their experiences. But again, we have something happening recently where supposedly a man that headed up the recent Pentagon study of the subject has said that there's going to be things released. So I've seen it come and go over my involvement in this study of this field from the age of 15 for years and years. So who knows?
But in my opinion, the way that I've seen it going for the last 28 years of doing this show is that the old guard, I'm talking about the Stephen Greers, the John Mack, Bud Hopkins, Stanton Friedman, who's still around, thank God, and the core of the real UFO group, they're not being replaced by people, in my opinion, who have the same appreciation, the same drive, the same enthusiasm as the old guard did.
I think you're right. That's a really interesting point. These people were great people. I met all the ones that you're talking about, and they were dedicated to studying this. Did they tap into real meaning of this? I'm sure they made some headway in all this. But you're right. All these people are dying off, and it only remains to be seen who takes the helm from here and what direction does it go.
I think that one of the problems, Michael, is that the internet has made everything way too accessible, way too fast. People actually don't go out and do the door knocking and the field investigations that used to be done with the type of reporting that each of these researchers used to take pride in presenting, and the die-hard methods that they would use to investigate these cases with. I just don't see it anymore, and it makes me sad if you can understand it.
Well, maybe the powers that be that may know what this is all about might be breathing a sigh of relief that maybe there'll be a pause. But I think, mark my word, maybe in a few hundred years from now, who knows when, some of these people will be remembered. Their memories will be resurrected, and they'll make the history books possibly.
What makes your book different from other UFO books?
I think basically it's the stories, like I was saying a little earlier,
the first person.
Are first-hand accounts. I interviewed these people. All these stories that are in there, a few were from Rosemary, but mainly from me. I interviewed these people. I asked good questions. I got them to really explain and describe their experiences. I want to know how they thought, they felt, what did they do, what would they have done differently, how did they react, how did it affect them. And so the human side of these people's experiences, from my psychological point of view, from my background, social science and all this, makes it different. It's not a book of facts, data, collections of shapes of objects that people see. It's the firsthand experiences that people have had, that they shared with me. They wanted to tell somebody about it. And hopefully by some of the kinds of questions and the commentary that Rosemary has added to this, maybe we've made a dent in understanding it just a little bit more, or at least relating to these people's experiences.
I think after having had the pleasure of talking to you for nearly an hour now, I can see that your expertise as a psychologist, as well as a member of MUFON and someone who has taken a serious look into not only this phenomena, but talking to people who have had the experiences and using your BS detector as a psychologist is a big asset.
Well, we could always have better BS detectors, can't we? But I have to say, I think that the people trusted me and related to me as someone who was earnestly interested in hearing what they had to say without evaluating them, without criticizing them, and letting them speak and letting them speak their minds. I think that's a plus. And I'm happy that I allowed myself to be able to be this way. If I just kept both my feet in a solid scientific box, I would not have stepped out of it to explore these things like I have.
Well, we're glad you did. We're glad you did. And I always say if you're not part of the problem, you're part of if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. And who the hell wants to be part of a problem these days?
Exactly.
What's next for you, my friend?
I'm going to do a third book with Rosemary. We're looking over material. We're trying to see which direction we should go with this. We love the Road to Strange caption for the book, so we're going to explore some other strange phenomena that we didn't spend that much time with in the first two books. And then I'm going to move on to my huge collection of travel stories and try to see, I did this one on women's safety and security.
I like that.
The future of travel, and I'm going to look at doing a book on pickpocketing, close calls, great escapes, things that are really helpful and useful to people.
Excellent. I've got about 2 minutes left. I want to ask you briefly about the book you wrote about riding the public transit systems to travel.
That was a first. I decided, and I figured out that in all these great popular tourist cities like Paris and London and Honolulu even, I figured out that you could see the top 50 visitor attractions very easily using the mass transit system. And funny, I did one for L.A., just a digital one. People said, you can't get around L.A. on public transportation. But I showed that you can get to the top 50 visitor attractions in LA by their light rail system. They do have a subway line, and some of the express buses. You could get right to Disneyland. You could go to all these places, and it's a fantastic system. And I believe I proved these people wrong. You can get around LA. You just have to allow some time to do it. And my London and Paris ones are still very popular.
Michael, the time has come when you and I must say so long for now. Once again, congratulations on your book, and also please give Rosemary my very best the next time you're speaking to her.
I will. Thank you so much.
Hey, listen, don't be a stranger. Come back next time with Rosemary, and we'll share some more tales with the X-Zone listeners. X-Zone Nation, my guest this hour has been Michael Brein. His website is www.michaelbrein.com, and I'm going to spell Michael's last name for you. It's MichaelBrein.com. And I'll be back on the other side of this news and commercial break as we continue here in the X-Zone from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. After all, this is a place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard. It's a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. And we're with you Monday through Friday from 10 p.m. Eastern until 2 a.m. Eastern. You've got it on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, Talkstar Radio Network, Mutual Broadcast Network, and iHeartRadio. And soon on Simul TV. We'll be back. Don't go away.
Modern Esoteric, Beyond Our Senses by Brad Olson, consummates the lifeology story about where humanity originates. It is the lost continents, the primitive wisdom, the mythos of creation, and the rethinking of ancient history as we are taught in academia. There is much more to the story than what we have been told. As this is the first book in the Esoteric series, Modern Esoteric starts at the beginning of time and accelerates up to this modern age. Future Esoteric is book 2 in the series and takes a forward-looking position ahead of today with an open and honest examination of the ET issue and various unexplained phenomena. To discover the writings of author Brad Olson, visit www.bradolson.com. That's www.bradolson.com. Are you or is someone you know struggling with addictions, depression, anxiety, relationships, low self-esteem, lack of confidence, grief, success, and prosperity? Do you know that your subconscious belief plays a big role in the outcome of your hard work? We can help you permanently change the beliefs that may be the reason for your struggles and failures. We care about getting you the return on your investment and the results you are looking for. We can help you be free of the limitations of your past and in realizing your highest potential. We work with people by phone and Skype. For more information, visit us at www.ritasoman.com. That's www.ritasoman.com. Do you think you have energy problems in your home? Do you feel better when you're away than when you're home? Joey Korn is a global leader in the world of dowsing who specializes in personal energy clearing and space clearing. He can help you create an ideal energy environment in your home no matter where you live in the world. Learn about his remote spiritual house cleaning services and much more at www.dowsers.com. You can get Joey's book, Dowsing, A Path to Enlightenment, as well as other dowsing books and tools, Kabbalah books, and Walter Russell books. Joey's work is really amazing. Go to dowsers.com right now. That's DOWSERS.com or call 1-877-DOWSING. That's 1-877-369-7464.